Behind bars, Martha Stewart sentenced to prison, but not going quietly.
I'll be back. I will be back.
Her sentence, her marketing pitch, and what's next for what's left of her empire. Big country, the government changes its position on a national epidemic, obesity. What this could mean for millions of overweight Americans. Lifeline, a serious summer health threat making its way across the country. Why experts think it could be the worst year yet. And the twins, Jenna and Barbara Bush, out of college and out in the open. What do candidates' kids bring to the campaign trail?
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Substituting tonight, Brian Williams.
Good evening. Not too long ago, she was worth over $1 billion. Her name, after all, is a brand name. Tonight, Martha Stewart is making plans, barring a successful appeal, to report to prison, where she'll be issued a number for a 5-month stay. After that, another 5 months confined to one of her homes, and then 2 years probation. All of it for dumping close to 4,000 shares of stock, which, had she hung on to it, would have made her a tidy profit of about $300,000. We have 2 reports tonight, and we begin with NBC's Ann Thompson in New York.
On what she called a shameful day, Martha Stewart left the federal courthouse with a lenient sentence: prison and home confinement. Composed but bitter about her 2.5-year ordeal.
I have been choked and almost suffocated to death during that time, all the while more concerned about the well-being of others than for myself.
Inside, a more emotional Stewart used those exact same words to plead for leniency from Judge Miriam Cedarbaum. Stewart choked back tears as she urged the judge to remember all the good I have done and begged to get on with what I always thought was a good, worthwhile, exemplary life. But Stewart did not apologize for lying to investigators about why she sold her Imclone stock, and outside seemed defiant.
I'm just very, very sorry that it's come to this, that a small personal matter has been able to be blown out of all proportion, and with such venom and such gore.
Her co-defendant and former stockbroker Peter Bukanovic also got 5 months in prison and 5 months home confinement. Judge Cedarbaum told both, lying to government agents is a very serious matter. But to Stewart fans like Linda Smith, who drove 2 hours to support her idol, it all seemed unjust.
I'm going to pray that she has an appeal and she doesn't spend 1 day in jail. She doesn't deserve it.
Stewart will remain free while her lawyers appeal her conviction, an appeal that will focus on the alleged perjury of a juror and a witness, and the fact Stewart wasn't charged with insider trading.
The whole atmosphere of the trial was one about a crime that was never charged and never happened.
But very few federal criminal convictions are overturned, and if Stewart does serve time, she asked that it be at a prison in Danbury, Connecticut, near her home. Susan McDougal, who did time in federal prison on contempt charges in connection with the Whitewater scandal, says the toughest thing for Stewart would be the loss of control.
She's going to have to cope with maintaining in a sea of people who love chaos, who love a chaotic environment, who want to make it hard.
A determined Stewart insisted she and her homemaking empire would persevere.
And I'll be back. I will be back. Whatever I have to do in the next few months, I hope the months go by quickly. I'm used to all kinds of hard work, as you know, and I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid whatsoever.
A woman who made a career of domestic perfection, tonight her life is still unsettled and her future still uncertain. Ann Thompson, NBC News, New York.
Martha Stewart is just one of the poster children for bad corporate behavior. While she may be the most famous name on the list, she is far from the worst offender. Minimum security prisons are packed with those who once enjoyed the perks of high-flying corporate life. But now, where does this corporate crackdown go from here? Has it gone too far, perhaps? Tonight, we've asked a colleague from our business channel to weigh in on all of this. Here is CNBC's Scott Cohn.
Do scenes like this or this inspire confidence in business? In the wake of corporate scandals 2 years ago, the president appointed a corporate fraud task force
to expose and root out corruption.
More than 700 people have been charged, including the former CEOs of Enron and WorldCom. Martha Stewart is one of more than 300 people convicted. The laws are tougher, too. Senator Paul Sarbanes helped write a tough anti-corruption law with tougher sentences for corporate fraud, new protections for whistleblowers, and a requirement that chief executives personally vouch for their books. He says it's starting to show results.
We're getting a good system into place which gives some assurance to investors that they can go into our capital markets with some degree of confidence.
But 2 years after the reforms began, some in business are starting to push back, arguing the reforms have gone too far.
It's not Jacob's ladder.
Daniel Reynolds is chief financial officer of Callaway's Nursery, a chain of 27 garden centers in Texas. He says the new reporting requirements of the law are so costly, the company decided it could no longer afford to list its shares on the stock exchange.
We sat down and looked at it and determined that if we weren't a public company, we could save $500,000 a year. That's a lot of money for a company our size.
One study found the law will cost American businesses $5.5 billion this year, and that has some business groups calling for relief. But New York Attorney General Eliot Spitzer, who's been a leader in the fight against corporate crime, worries the backlash is a sign some executives could pick up old habits.
Will this be like watching somebody else get a speeding ticket 10, 15 miles down the road? You begin to break the law once again.
Perhaps the most direct measure of confidence in business, the stock market, is now back where it was before the scandals began. But with the reforms only now taking hold, the jury on corporate America is still out. Scott Cohn for NBC News, New York.
Not far from federal court in Manhattan, while Martha Stewart was having a bad day, stock in her company did well. Shares of Martha Stewart Omnimedia were up $3.17, closing at $11.81. That's a 37% gain. As for the rest of Wall Street today, stocks finished lower. The Dow was off more than 23 points. NASDAQ was down more than 29 points on the day. For the week, by the way, the Dow lost more than 73. NASDAQ was down more than 63 points on the week. That's 3.25%. A tragedy overseas to report tonight. The principal of a school in India is under arrest after a fire killed at least 84 children and seriously injured another 24. There are reports the school's main door was locked when the fire broke out. Police and firefighters said school officials were negligent and abandoned the 700 children ages 6 to 12 who were inside. Many were trapped on narrow staircases and trampled in the rush to escape. Tonight in the western United States, firefighters still struggling with wildfires. More than a dozen homes were destroyed near Carson City, Nevada in just the past 24 hours in a fire that is still only 30% contained. A small change in the fine print could soon make in depth our series Making Your Vote Count. Tonight, Florida. It was chaos central back in 2000. So why is the same woman still in charge in the county that gave us the hanging Chad? And later this week's political debut for the president's daughters, from glossy magazines to campaign photo ops, and the question, why now? NBC News In Depth, our continuing series, Making Your Vote Count. Tonight, Florida, ground zero in the disputed 2000 election. And to make sure no one forgets, the infamous Vote-O-Matic machine from Palm Beach County, which you'll recall introduced America to the butterfly ballot and the hanging Chad, is now on display as part of an exhibit on voting that opened today at the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History in Washington. The machines may be relics of an election fiasco, but the person who was in charge of it all back then is still in charge. The woman critics have called Madam Butterfly. In depth tonight, here is NBC's Chip Reed.
To the amazement of her critics, Teresa Lepore is still Palm Beach County's supervisor of elections.
Number one's not here, so we'll start with number two.
4 years ago, she was at the eye of a political hurricane. The Florida presidential recount, where butterfly ballots and hanging Chads became part of a national spectacle and turned her into a symbol of election chaos.
Every vote counts!
To this day, some Democrats say Lepore cost Al Gore thousands of votes and blame her, a former Democrat who now has no party affiliation, for putting George Bush in the White House.
I had a horrible voicemail message from somebody about how I've got the blood of over 500 American men and women on my hands because the war is my fault.
But she has never been a quitter, she says, and proved that this week when she filed for re-election, raising an obvious question.
After all you've been through, why?
Why? I get that a lot. I like my job. I love my job.
She's determined to prove that she and Palm Beach County can get it right this November with high-tech touchscreen voting and countless hours of voter education.
See, it shows that it changed.
Critics, though, say touchscreens have their own problems, including the absence of a paper record, making manual recounts impossible.
No computer is infallible, and we're asking simply that there be a paper trail. Ms. Lepore, unfortunately, puts total faith in these machines.
Are you confident these machines are going to work?
Yes, yes, they've been thoroughly tested internally and public tests that we have.
Despite all her hard work, even Lepore concedes as long as humans are involved in elections, there's no guarantee everything will go smoothly.
Lepore has one wish for this fall's presidential election. She says she doesn't care who wins, but she does hope that whoever prevails here in Palm Beach County does so by a large margin.
Because she knows if there is a recount here, the cameras will be back, and she will be under the national magnifying glass again. Chip Reed, NBC News, Palm Beach County, Florida.
Up next, protecting yourself and your family from West Nile virus. Experts say this summer could be the worst yet.
Tom Brokaw, brought to you in part by Aflac. Ask about it at work.
Martha Stewart, sentenced. Former SEC Chairman Harvey Pitt tells you what this could mean for other corporate offenders on a special hardball tonight on MSNBC.
Americans have always had a special fascination with the president's children. Grover Cleveland's baby daughter Ruth had a candy bar named for her that survives to this day. From Margaret Truman to Amy Carter to Caroline Kennedy, we have watched them grow up. And now, here come the Bush girls. Out of college, onto the pages of Vogue, and suddenly on the campaign trail. NBC's Andrea Mitchell tonight on a very public debut.
22-year-old Barbara Bush heading out to campaign today.
One of our daughters is with us. Barbara traveling with me today, and I'm so proud of Barbara. Thanks for coming, darling. February.
And twin sister Jenna with her father last week. After 4 years of being under wraps, suddenly the Bush twins are everywhere. In Vogue, even appearing strapless. A big makeover following years of unwanted tabloid coverage. Now Jenna is more likely to be seen reading to children than out clubbing.
You read to me, I read to you.
Oh, this is good.
Why the big change? Their mother says now they're old enough to help their father.
They told him that they didn't want to grow up and have children and say to their children that they'd never worked on one of their dad's campaigns.
But clearly they're also a big plus with younger voters.
These two girls are cool girls, they're attractive girls, they're young. Now that they see that there is this competition out there, the other kids, I think it's inspired them to get out and help their father.
In fact, John Kerry's daughters, Alexandra and Vanessa, have been campaigning nonstop.
We really hope that you will also see the man that we've grown up with. And that we're incredibly proud of.
So have Kerry's stepsons, the Hines brothers.
These children of the candidates become almost like rock stars. They become more valuable than governors or senators.
And if John Edwards' toddlers beguile photographers, so does Dick Cheney's granddaughter. Experts say the campaign kids help humanize their parents, make John Kerry seem less stiff, and George Bush more compassionate.
Our country has an insatiable appetite for knowing the personal about our presidents. And nobody knows George W. Bush quite like his daughters.
In 1992, the Clintons even let Chelsea appear in a campaign video.
What I would like America to know about my mother and father is that they're great people and they're great parents.
But there are a few risks when you go public, like the occasional wardrobe malfunction and increased adult supervision. Still, campaign managers know this is the year of the kids. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington.
And that is Nightly News for this Friday. Don't forget Dateline tonight at 8, 7 Central. I'm Brian Williams reporting tonight from New York. Tom Brokaw will be back here with you Monday night. Have a good weekend. Good night.
Nightly News is a presentation of NBC News. More Americans watch NBC News than any other news organization in the world.
"9/11 report. Missed signals and outright failures leading up to America's darkest day, and a chilling warning